Africa did not surrender quietly. That is another lie they taught us. Before conquest became occupation, there was resistance. Their forces are here. We must organize our defense.
The left flank is vulnerable.
Then we fortify it, relentlessly.
Agreed.
Armies march with discipline.
Women stood beside men.
Generals studied terrain. Messengers moved faster than maps could follow. This was not chaos, this was defense. But resistance does not fit the story of easy conquest, so it had to disappear. Battles were named skirmishes, victories were called temporary unrest, leaders were labeled rebels instead of defenders. Because when people defend themselves, the conqueror must look like a criminal, not a savior, so the story changed.
After the battles, after the treaties, after the occupation, the next target was the mine.
African resistance leaders were not remembered, they were removed. Names were left out of textbooks. Kings became warlords, strategists became troublemakers, defenders became violent rebels.
Because a hero with a cause is harder to control than a criminal with a label, some leaders were imprisoned far from home.
Some were exiled, some were executed quietly, not publicly, not ceremonially. Quiet deaths leave no martyrs. The Hadjadis were never built, stories were dismissed as folklore, those who could not be erased were rebranded. And without martyrs, movements are supposed to fade, but leadership does not die with the body, it survives in ideas, in songs.
In customs passed down without names. This is why certain figures feel familiar, even when we cannot place them.
Then the final lie was truth, but the Elizabeths, Africa rebelled.
And rebellion sounds reckless, unplanned, violent for no reason, but resistance was not rage, it was organized defense. Armies moved with structure.
Supply lines were protected.
Intelligence was gathered.
Strategy came before attack.
Every refusal was called stubbornness. Every leader who said no was labeled dangerous.
None of that survived the history books. Instead, resistance was rewritten as chaos.
Because if resistance looks irrational, then conquest looks necessary, so every act of defense was framed as disorder. This is why African resistance is remembered as noise, while European wars are remembered as strategy, same action, different language. One is honored, the other is dismissed. But erasing resistance was not enough. The role of a woman had to disappear too. We are not only supporters, we are commanders, strategists, forward warriors. Ancestors guide us. Some led armies, some controlled supply networks, some decided when war began and when it ended. So history rewrote them as wives, as helpers, as background figures. Their authority was minimized, their leadership softened, their names buried deeper than the men's. Because a society that remembers powerful women is harder to dominate. And once women were removed from the story, future generations learned to doubt their own strength. The resistance changed its form. Open war became impossible, so survival became strategy. Resistance became silence, but culture and memory are passed carefully within families. Languages were preserved in whispers.
Rituals survived in fragments.
Identity learned to hide. Silence was not weakness, it was protection, because those who spoke too loudly were punished, so strength learned how to wait.
And while the world believed resistance had ended, it was only adapting. Even today, the consequences remain.
Borders still divided communities, conflicts still follow colonial lines, instability is blamed on Africans themselves. But chaos was designed, division was engineered, dependence was intentional. Africa was not resisting progress, it was resisting erasure. They did not fear African violence, they feared African organization. Because organized people are not easy to rule, and memory makes organization possible. That is why memory was attacked, that is why silence was forced, this why resistance was renamed rebellion. Africa resisted, Africa remembers, and history is still catching up.